So this is a 1974 CJ5. This is the AMC Jeep. This is a, yeah, this factory would have come with a, I think it's a, what is it, 258 straight six and a 3-speed manual transmission. It currently has a 4.0 6 straight six and an automatic AW4 out of a 1996 Jeep Cherokee. The axles are out of the Cherokee as well, front and rear. So that gives it disc brakes. Yeah, so that's basically the drivetrain, and it's miserable. Some interesting things to know. Let's cover the motor first. All right, the motor is a 96 4.0 straight six, fuel injected, and the automatic transmission, which is way back there, is an AW4 automatic. The transmission control module I mounted back here on this fender. I don't know if you can see that real well, but that's where it's at. I'm not real sure if that's a good place for it or not. When we first got it, it didn't want to start correctly. The guy had, whoever had done the conversion, more or less Frankensteined the old Renix system with the newer Chrysler system, and it would sometimes start, sometimes not start, most of the time not start, sometimes it would start, and basically it was just a messed up pile of junk. So what we did, so here we are inside the cab, underneath, way back here into the dash. This right here is a MegaSquirt injection computer. It's also controlling the ignition. That's just the way the factory computer also controlled the ignition timing. This was bought as a kit, so it basically came as a bunch of parts, and we soldered it all together, and I've got some clips of that, some photos and stuff of when that happened. And you can see, so this cable here, this is the data cable. This is an old parallel port. Over here is a serial cable. I don't know, you can't really see it. It's stabbed in the side here. That's how we plug into the laptop so we can do the programming. This here, this parallel here is a bundle of cables. It goes back to the firewall. And let's see if we can see this real well. I don't know, it's kind of contrasty out here, but anyway, so this bundle of wires, so this one here is from the MegaSquirt, comes into the bottom here, and then this controller here has the relays and fuses and everything, all the signal wires to and from the block for basically the sensors and firing the injectors and all that kind of stuff come and go through this right here, as well as the relay for like the fuel pump and all of that kind of stuff. So something I can't show you here because it's up in it, but the fuel tank has the factory factory Cherokee injection, the fuel pump. And so what I had done was I actually, if I remember correctly, I put another hole in the deal in the can in the gas tank, and I put a flange, and that's where the factory pump now mounts in there. So we have a factory Cherokee fuel pump in the tank feeding this fuel injection system. Something else to look at is the radiator. It has the aluminum radiator. I picked this up online as a kit, and so I bought the radiator, and then it came with the fans, this twin fan thing, and it didn't fit. I had to make these brackets, and I don't remember exactly what was going on, but I built these little brackets to mount the fan shroud and fans to the radiator. But I don't know if you can see down in there, but man, it was a tight fit right through here. And like I said, I'm not the one that put this in here, and I think this engine could have probably set back at least another inch, and that would have given me better clearance here. Another thing I'm kind of proud of, actually, I think it's kind of amusing. This is this steering column is actually out of a '64 Chevy Impala SS convertible. A buddy of mine had me pull it out of his, and because he wanted a tilt column, and I just held on to it, and I've got some other pictures of this that we can show you of where I'm modifying it and getting it to fit. But what was in here originally when we got it was the steering column out of the Cherokee. To get it to talk, so this link here was there, but to get it to talk, so this is actually a section of the Cherokee steering column, and it's a tube, and it's been pinched, so it's a double flat style steering column. But inside this is the 64, and it's a solid shaft. And what we did, all I had to do was mill down both sides to where it fits, and we've clamped it down. And it's another upgrade we put on here was the dual master cylinder with the brake booster. It's got disc brakes. You really need to have a power booster on the disc brakes. It just, the master cylinder that was on it was just the old factory style 74 brake master, and man, this thing is really big and comes way out compared to what was there. But I don't know how else I'd power those disc brakes very well, so that was an upgrade. Another fun little thing was this right here. So this little block, these lines are what feed the heater, which I don't have. It just goes in, comes right back out. So I don't have a heater core, but I needed more ports for my temperature sensors and such. So this one here goes to the gauge inside. This is the switch for the electric fans, and the factory position, which was on the let's get in here. I don't know if we can. So the factory position right here, this talks to the injection computer. So yeah, so that was my solution to get more ports. Let's talk about the gauges and instrument cluster. So the speedometer is from Speed Hut, and I went ahead and got the one that was the GPS. The GPS model here, the little radio for it is right, the receiver is right there on the hood. Hood's up right now, but it just sets right there, a little magnetic base on it, and it just sets there and goes for a ride. It uses the GPS to clock your speed, and then it is also tied into the automatic transmission. Has a just a signal, just a little pulse generator, and it uses that pulse generator as it calibrates with it, and that way, in case there's no GPS signal, it still works. You're still getting a speedometer, but the speedometer works really well. Trip meter, it has elevation on the gauge, which if I turned it on, we could see that. We've got a temp gauge, works pretty well. Fuel gauge works really well. Over here, I've got a temp gauge. It's an old mechanical temp gauge. It's not tied to anything currently. I thought about tying it into the transmission fluid temperature, but I may or may not ever use. I'm not sure I'm going to even keep the automatic. Oil pressure, voltmeter, and we've got a wideband O2 sensor, and that is so that it can talk to the computer, and it's mostly part of the tuning of the computer and the fuel tables. So it gives a nice accurate reading of whether you're running rich or lean or whatever. So when we got it, the seats that were in it were out of the Cherokee that they'd gotten everything else out of, and the previous owner had already bought these Best Top seats. I think they're Smitty built. I'm sorry, not Best Top. They're Smitty built, and there were no brackets. So I built the brackets for under here. I don't know if you'll be able to see that. This is the only thing that's I don't even know if that's original here. This looks like somebody's modified it if it was the original. But yeah, this little bracket here, I built this. I didn't make it adjustable because it turns out the best position for the driver's seat is about 3 or 4 inches that direction, and so adjustability won't help me because I can't go any further back anyway. For the passenger seat, I made it where it'll flip up, and there's my little toolbox, but I've got no lid for my toolbox, so that's fun. I also I ordered the back seat, the bench seat in the back, and I managed to buy the wrong color. It's supposed to be black vinyl, and I somehow picked up, I think they called it black denim. I don't know. It's not black. It's not denim. It's just wrong. Something else I'd like to talk about, and I don't even know if I have any pictures of it. I looked a little bit and I didn't see any, and I'm going to look again. But this rail here that's used to clip for the top, when we got this, was missing. It wasn't even here. And so there was something screwed on there. It was really awful. I don't know what it was off of, but so I had to fabricate one and let the car go by. Anyway, we had to fabricate one, and it's a piece of sheet metal across the back and a piece of 1/2-inch square tube, and if I can get in there, I'm not sure I can. You might be able to see just barely. I never painted it, so it's still rusty right there, but that's just a piece of square tube that's had one side split open with a cutoff wheel on a grinder, just cleaned up real neat. And then it's currently just screwed to the top frame of the windshield. So yeah, it worked out really, really, really well. I do have a problem over here where the top is trying to come undone. I may need to pull this top and refit it. I think it's actually the wrong top for a 74, but whatever. It fits, kind of, sort of. So that's basically the 1974 CJ5. It was built in February, I can tell you that much, so it's exactly the same age as I am. I don't know if it came out on the 21st or not, but it is a February 74 CJ5. There's basically, the entire electrical was done. I bought a kit to rewire the whole electrical. I think I just bought a generic, might have been a Summit. It might have been a Summit brand wiring kit. I mean, it's just wires. They don't have to be brand name. But all the lights, the signal, the only lights in it that really were correct and working, and they were even installed goofy, were the headlights. And I had to redo those. So yeah, so the turn signal, all the signal lights, all the wiring had to be done. There were, it still doesn't have a heater. None of the heater box, any of that stuff's there. Like I say, I think originally the guy's intent, whoever was that did the conversion, I think their intent was to turn it into a trail rig. And, you know, I have a bunch of photos and videos, and we're going to be cramming those all into this video. And that's basically the story of the CJ5. We bought it from a guy down in Yorba Linda. We flat towed it home, because when I first got it, it had a tow bar on the front, so it was ready to go. We just threw it in neutral and came back over the freeway. We actually towed it home with the Fugly Truckling, which we, as mentioned before, I no longer have. That rear tow bar had a spare tire holder. I still have it somewhere, but it was awful and I hate it. So eventually that whole rear bumper is going to be, I want to fabricate a new rear bumper for it. The front bumper is ugly, but it doesn't offend me, so it's probably going to stay. I may get rid of those tabs on the front, or I don't know what I'm going to do with those tabs. I may just leave them, because in case the thing breaks down, at least I still have the tow bar in the backyard. We'll be able to find somebody that can flat tow it home. The chain on the front bumper actually went on there yesterday, and it wasn't to make it look tough or anything. It was because it was on the trailer that I towed, and I needed a place to store it, so I just wrapped it on there, and I don't know, it may live there now. I kind of like it. It makes me look like some sort of big-time off-roading Jeep guy, even though I don't have a winch on there, but like a big-time off-roading Jeep guy. So, yeah. One other thing that I want to do though is I think the 4.0 has plenty of power. I just don't think it's getting through that transmission. That transmission is an AW4, and my understanding is it's a 3-speed plus overdrive. Greetings from the future. All right, so I want to explain something that's going on. It's been a few weeks actually since you can tell I got more hair and stuff. It's been a few weeks since I recorded the bulk of the video that I'm currently editing. And in that time, I put a little effort into figuring out what was going on with the transmission in the Jeep. And in the original recording, I actually talk about it just is weird. And one of the weird anomalies was, for example, I never could tell if it was actually going into overdrive. Well, there's not a lot of difference between third gear and overdrive, but I couldn't tell. So I actually drove it on the freeway, drove it to Tehachapi from here on the freeway going, and there's quite a grade. It's quite a like 6% grade for a lot of it. So I figured out what was going on. You give it a little throttle, and then it would upshift. It would shift into overdrive. That's weird. Shouldn't do that. Should downshift if I have to give it more throttle, right? So I actually ended up pulling the pan off of it, checking the solenoids, checking everything. Surprisingly, the inside of that transmission was clean. The solenoids all worked. I did have a connection issue at one of the joints in the loom for solenoid number 2. But what I finally figured it out. So if you go back, I'm sure I mentioned that when we first got it, it was kind of a hybridized system. The fuel injection, whoever did the conversion knew way more about it than I did, and probably knew more about what he was doing than I did, certainly. But they had hybridized the older Rennick system with the Chrysler system, and I found out that my suspicion is actually the transmission is from an older Jeep, and it's probably about an 89 or 90, and I'll show you why I think that here in a minute. But this was the throttle body that was on it when we got it. And as you can see, there's a little bit of a funny little homemade, they welded a little tab here. I don't know if you can see that real well, but they welded this little tab on here to actuate the older Rennick style throttle position sensor. And you can see this throttle position sensor actually has 2 pigtails. And I think this one talks to the computer, and this one, this one talks to the fuel injection computer, while this one here, he talks to the transmission control unit. Talks to this transmission control unit. This is, and you can't see that. It took me forever to see it, but it says 89A, which I think is a date code for 1989. A is probably a month code, probably January, I don't know. There's no telling. I'm sure somebody knows out there, but it's not me. But what I figured out, I took some measurements on this. This is just a potentiometer. It's actually, and in this case, there's 2 in here. And they start at a certain resistance, and they go to another resistance. And the best I can, if I remember correctly the way I read it, when you give it more throttle, one side, the resistance goes down, which is the one that goes to the computer, which means that the more open it is, the more voltage goes to the computer, so it gets a higher reading. The one that goes to the transmission actually starts low, and the resistance starts low and goes high, which means the voltage goes down with the more throttle. So there is a sweet spot, running it the way we had it, there is a sweet spot somewhere when it's about fully open where it says, oh, I can shift into overdrive. The solution is easy. I went to the wrecking yard one bright early morning, and I got another transmission control unit from a 1995 Cherokee. Runs great. So, just wanted to update that. I just wanted to inject that in here while I had the chance. So, anyway, back to the past. Ooh. A third option, which would really, there's actually a fourth option I gave a little thought to, and that would be to find another straight 6 and a standard transmission. Like go find a 258, an actual period correct straight 6. But I don't hang around with a lot of Jeep people, so I don't know where those are, and I don't know that I'd find a good deal on one. But I do have, there's a 1973 Ford setting out here, and I've been told that I inherit the 360 V8, the Ford 360 V8, and the transmission out of it, and that would make everybody mad. That'd make Jeep people a little upset, that'd upset the Ford people a little bit, and it would probably upset me trying to wedge that thing, because it's, you know, the block itself isn't particularly wide, but all the ancillaries, it's this big, and so it would be kind of an interesting fit. I think I could do it, and I'm tempted. But what I am tempted more to do is to find a little small block Chevy for it, and I know where, I've already talked to somebody that has a small block Chevy that the machine work, it's ready to, it had all the machine work done, it's got all the new parts, it just wasn't assembled yet. So, yeah. Anyway, that's it for the 1974 CJ5. I hope you enjoy the video. I'm hoping I hope I can get this thing together to where it looks like something, and hopefully there's a bunch of, I'll have a bunch of photos and some video, a little bit of a road trip footage on there with it driving down the highway, and yeah, so until next time, bye. If anybody asks, Jeep stands for just empty every pocket.